everyone joining us today. We have our two alumni. We have Julia Rizk, who graduated in 2015. She's a professional athlete for Under Armour. She's also the one that you guys heard from on Monday. And then we also have Fred Barends, who graduated in 1979, is the Director of Operations for Track and Field and Cross Country at OSU. For any of you that is questioning becoming an athlete or working in the sports industry, when you're older, I hope you guys get something out of this. Ms. Rizk, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. So like Aislinn said, I graduated in the year 2015. I'm a current professional runner for Under Armour in the DC area. I started in the DC area and then I actually moved back to train with my college coach at Ohio State. So a little bit of back and forth there, but sponsored by Under Armour. My job mostly consists of working out, staying healthy, eating 5 times a day, getting in the gym, and traveling to different meets to promote Under Armour's products by running in their uniform and their spikes and their shoes and posting on Instagram to kind of promote those other fun products like shirts and spandex and new products that they have coming out.
I'm Fred Barends, graduated in 1979. I went to Kenyon College, was a history major, and didn't really know what I wanted to do when I graduated. And Christine Davis, who went to Columbus School for Girls and probably was a tennis coach at Smith College for about 35 or 40 years, said, you've done athletics for such a long time. Why don't you look at sport management? So I ended up going to the University of Massachusetts Amherst, which had one of the 3 top programs in sport management at that time. It was Ohio State, Ohio University, and UMass. I went there, ended up getting my sport management degree, and helped with tennis and basketball at Smith, and then ended up as the assistant athletic director and the women's track coach at Pomona Pitzer for a while. Went east and was the assistant headmaster and director of athletics and coached 9 different teams at the Atlantic City Friends School, and moved on to Earlham College, where I was assistant dean in admissions in charge of athletic recruiting and the assistant tennis coach. From there, I ended up coaching track at Otterbein College and Otterbein University, Ohio Wesleyan, where I ended up in the Hall of Fame for coaching track there. Started the track program at Capital University. 2011, came to Ohio State as the director of operations for track and field and cross country. Went to the University of Michigan for 3 years, same position. And then in July, the person that replaced me at Ohio State was leaving. Coach Dennis here called up and said, you're coming back, whether you like it or not. And I said, that's great. And so 7 weeks ago, I came back to Ohio State. I'm thrilled to be back. I just love being around athletes and working with them. And with my position, I'm really a person that loves being in the background. When I was at the Academy, I was a 3-sport athlete, captain of 3 different teams, on student council for 4 years, president of the senior class. And the point of all that is, I think what I got out of Academy was learning to serve and helping others from behind the scenes. It wasn't being the front man all the time. Yeah, you're captain, rah, you're out there getting introduced first, etc. But what did you do for your team? What did you do for your classmates? As a captain in college for Kenyon track for 2 years, what were you doing with the head coach to service your team? And all the way through as a coach, it wasn't about, oh, you're the head coach. It was, you're a head coach. What were you doing to give the athletes the best possible opportunity to have success out there? And even here at Ohio State, as director of ops, what I learned at Michigan was, what are you doing to give the athletes the best possible opportunity to compete? So when we went to the Big Ten meet this past weekend, I brought out a lot of, not tricks, but a lot of things that we were doing at Michigan for the athletes out on the cross country course. And they were like, wow, we've never had this before. And it was just certain foods, gloves, everything else for cold weather, for rain that hadn't been out there before. And it was just what other teams had. And we were ready to go to give them the best opportunity so they could just worry about competing, getting ready for their meet. And so that's what a lot of athletics, what I've done and what a lot of athletics is about. It's not about being the Michael Jordan, being out there, the stud athlete. It's helping out all the behind the scenes things that go into putting on the competition, whether it's the athlete, whether it's the fan. What is the fan experience? What brings the fans into the competition site to give them that great experience? And that's what I do. From the athlete to the fan, that's what I've done forever, since 1980, whatever. It's giving everyone that comes into a facility, athlete, fan, et cetera, a fantastic experience.
Thank you. So my first question for both of you is, what did you go into college for? Like, what was your major, and did that end up having anything to do with like what you ended up doing now? Like for Julia, you are a professional athlete. So what was your major and how did that change?
So I went to UCLA for my first 2 years, and I was going to be an engineer and then realized that I was going to hate that. So I switched over and ended up transferring to Ohio State my junior year. And I was in the Fisher School of Business. I studied finance, minors in math and Spanish. So that definitely didn't really, I guess, prepare me to be a professional runner. I kind of was just doing that for my college degree. I wanted to go into business. That's kind of ultimately what my goal was. So that was something I could fall back on after I was done with my professional career. So that was kind of long-term thinking for me, not so much short-term thinking for professional running. I mean, professional running, so many different degrees. So my teammates, they were engineers, coders, regular business degrees, interested in public health. So really from all different walks of life, all different majors.
For me, back in the 70s, it was like, you do a liberal arts school, you can do anything with your degree. I was looking at political science, US history, you get a good background, you present yourself well, you learn to organize yourself, you learn thought. History is easy. With Rainey Taylor teaching US history to me back in the 70s, it was an easy choice for me at Kenyon College. My family had been banking, doctors, lawyers, etc. I didn't fit the mold. So I ended up with a history degree, and I actually used it. So when I taught at Bexley for summer school and for a year in Bexley when they had an overload of kids in U.S. history. I used my degree for U.S. history in those situations. I've tutored a lot of kids, both high school and college, in a variety of different subjects. So I used my degree, which was nice. Learning how to teach, etc., all came from going to college and being a liberal arts and being a well-rounded individual, and that's helped me coaching. But I never thought about going into sport management. That was not a big to do. As one of my professors said in sport management school, there are more lawyers in California at that time than there were positions in sport management back in 1983. So you're going into a very tight field. Think you're going to get an easy job, you're just not going to get that job. That field has expanded immensely till today. So I didn't go to school at all thinking about this is what I was going to end up doing for the next 40 years, 50 years of my life.
Follow up to that, both of you obviously really enjoy your jobs. So what is most exciting to you when you get to work? What is the best part about your day?
For me, it's probably being able to travel and compete against some of the best in the nation. I always loved competition. Also, like being able to train with teammates. So I really looked forward to kind of exploring new areas, being able to go around. I mean, I was in past season in the spring. I went to California, I went to Miami, I went to Boston, I was in New York. So it was just a lot of fun traveling around and meeting different people. I mean, people in track are so nice. I fell in one of the races and like 6 different people came up to me and were like, "Oh my gosh, are you okay?" Like, just so worried for my well-being, and I barely knew them. So I think it's traveling and being able to meet different people and just being able to compete and get up on that line and see what your training prepared you for.
I just have an awesome place to work. Most of this coaching staff came in when I was here with my first stint at Ohio State, and to come back and watch how this group has matured. I have a wonderful place to work. It's just a real joy for me every day to be around here and be with the coaches and with the athletes.
For the more specific questions, what is it like working in the sports industry but not playing a sport anymore? Do you ever miss that action or like that constant working, or are you comfortable with where you are watching everyone else?
The overly competitive situations in 1983, when it was over for me. My trainer at Kenyon College was saying it's over. You've wasted your body. You've killed it, and you should quit. I made it through my senior year, just kind of dragging it through, and for myself, a pretty successful career in high school and fairly successful in college, and being able to recreate and have a good time, that's fun. So it's great for me to go out and watch awesome athletes that have a lot more skill than I ever had go out there and be able to compete and be absolutely phenomenal out there, being a national champ, going past what they expected to do being at Michigan and watching a person that's like the last seed and come in and be a national champion, like in a 10K or something like that. To a point, you forget you were an athlete, but you kind of go through those people out there and you feel what you get, that excitement, what they're feeling. You're not even worried about being an athlete anymore. You just are thrilled for what they're able to do.
For Ms. Rizk, being a woman in sports is already difficult, but you're in such a public eye that I'm assuming it's a lot more stress. So do you have any advice for the girls in this room that would like to become professional athletes, specifically in sports?
Yeah, I think just not allowing that to control how you see your world. I was fortunate enough that I had a lot of male coaches throughout college. All my coaches were male, and even in my professional career, they were male. And they were always there to build me up. So I was very fortunate in that sense. They were always there to support me and get me to that next level. I never felt as if they viewed me as less than. Obviously, track has male and female expectations. That's why we're separated on the line. We don't run cross country together. So it was always, you can do what you want to do. We were completely capable of achieving our goals and achieving our dreams. And I think especially Kadivas at Ohio State pushed us to that brink and definitely got me to where I am today for sure. So no, I never felt that way. I think just I was with District Track Club in DC, and I decided to move on from that coach there back in March, literally 3 months before the Olympic trials, which was a tough, difficult decision for me. But I think just in general, like standing up for yourself and not really letting people kind of walk all over you, I think is super important. And I've always kind of been a buck the system type of person. And I always spoke my mind, and maybe to a fault. And I've learned when to keep my mouth closed sometimes. You got to get along with people at the end of the day. But I ended up switching back to my college coach, Kadivas, in the beginning of March. And it was the best decision I ever made. I ended up getting to the semifinals in the Olympic trials, which was a big goal for me, and was happy with where that season ended. So no, I think for the women in the room, don't let I'm a girl cloud your judgment for what you can do. A lot of people out there are going to support you and be there for you and push you to achieve your dreams. So don't let that cloud anything in your future.
That's great. Thank you very much. So I'm going to go ahead and open it up to the audience if you guys have any questions for them.
What was the reason that you transferred from UCLA to OSU? Did it have anything to do with your track career, or was it more just the wrong place for you? Or
yeah, I think I was, born and bred Columbus. I wanted to get out of the city. I reached out to some California schools, and Coach Braden at UCLA reached back out to me, and I took a visit there and I fell in love. But after 2 years there, it had nothing to do with the program or the school. I think it was just too far from me too soon. My coach was great. The team was great. I'm still really close with a lot of the girls from there. I still go back out and visit. I love LA, but yeah, I think it just might have been too far away too soon for me. I think now, 7 years later, I would go back out there easy peasy, but yeah, maybe too soon of a change for me. And that was personal. Some people are ready for that early on, and I just think I wasn't.
So I guess going from college to the workforce, what did you have to do to acclimate yourself?
I came out feeling pretty sure of myself, and you come into sport and a lot of times you have to take some steps back because you're now the underling, and you have to realize you have get up and go, but you still have to learn something new. For me, 12 years at Academy, 4 years at Kenyon, you've been in small situations, and now you get into something else, and you have to be willing to open your mind to learn new things and get out of the way you've been doing them or the way you were taught, and fit into that system the way they want you to do it there. I mean, it's just like you say, well, this is the way the book says to do it. No, this is the way we're doing it here, and it doesn't always fit the book model or the way that you were doing it at your former institutions. When I went to Michigan, for example, here I am in my mid-50s switching schools, and they looked at me and going, what are you doing? And I go, well, you haven't taught me the Michigan way, which was totally different than the Ohio State way. And it was like, no, we don't do it that way. You need to be doing it. I go, well, until you teach me, I've got an open mind, do this. And that's the same thing when you're 22, 23, 24. How do you want this to be done? And adapting adding a few things you would like to as time goes along and letting them realize that you're really good at what you do. You do have a few good ideas, but adapting those ideas into how they fit into their system.
I think that's super good advice. I felt coming out of college and even going into college, like people always said, oh my gosh, you're going to a Pac-12 school. Like that's huge. Like you're coming from D3. Like how are you going to adapt? Like you're a big fish in a small pond here and you're going to be a little fish in a big pond there, and just not allowing that. And I ended up, I mean, I loved cross country. I loved track at UCLA. I went to nationals in cross and track while I was there. Taking what you've learned in your past, kind of what Fred's saying, and like applying it to your future, like just taking those values and those principles and just amplifying them. And I guess one specific thing I would say about professional running, I can really only speak for track. I'm not sure how it is in other sports, but don't get discouraged with where you stand, especially in track. Like I know so many people who are able to go pro afterwards. There are so many different clubs out there, so many different people who want people to chase their dream and chase their running career. So I wouldn't let that, like where you stand in comparison to other people, deter you from following that, because there's so many different opportunities, maybe not Craig Engels, Donovan Brazier, Raven Rogers level, but definitely lots of opportunities, especially in the States, to go forward and compete and do what you love, if there are any runners in the audience. So don't let where you stand deter you from doing that.
Thank you, speakers.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us. Appreciate it.